The boy run like a wounded dog. Broke your sin record. Don't run. Baba boy, don't run. The boy dress up like police. And I run like thief. Don't run. Baba boy, don't run. Yo, shout out to, who was it that requested Vibes Cartel? Waved. Shout out to Wave. There's some Vibes Cartel. Me are the last man standing. Rifle shot move the goalie banking. Gone to your barber shop and trim. Next year, not do no more damn sting. Me are the last man standing. A beer big matic Gaza man bring. Me no coward like Bounty and him. Log on pon YouTube, watch the damn film. Lisa hype, Baba boy embarrass him fans. Anyway, I'll stop there. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We're in here. Who we got in here? We got Wave, we got Team Batman Boxing, we got Cat, CXLV, the Iron Inspector, we got TM, we got 4 Fox Aikman, we got how do you pronounce that? Austin KN, Philip Answer, Ryan Emus. Okay. So, we're going to go over some stuff which I talked about on the other channel first. Then we'll get into a more general boxing chat. So, first of all, for those of you who didn't maybe catch this bit, we can talk about the situation with Boots Ennis and Stanionis, because Eddie Hearn said that he offered Stanionis the fight with Boots Ennis. Stanionis tried to come out and say, no, they never offered me no fight. Denied it all. Where we at? So here it is. Eddie Hearn in an interview saying he offered Stanionis the Boots Ennis fight. Stanionis tweeting saying, I spoke with my advisor, who's Al Heyman, and nobody reached out to us. Stop the BS. I accepted the fight 2 years ago twice. And again, going over what I said on the other channel, I wrote this. I put this message up in the Element group. I said Eddie Hearn is a BSer, but I don't trust PBC to tell their fighters about all of the offers they get for them. PBC is a cultish-like promotional outfit. And no sooner had I said that, Eddie Hearn said, you better check again. 2 days ago, sent the offer in. Stanionis then replied by saying, my advisor doesn't deal with rubles. Make a real offer. This is why I didn't even hear about it. And so this really is typical of PBC. You know, when a fighter of theirs gets an offer from a rival promoter, they're not necessarily always going to tell them about it. If I was Stanionis, I'd be angry that Al Heyman never told him. But, you know, it's like they're brainwashed in PBC. It's like a cult. They cut them off from the outside world. They don't let them know about offers from rival promoters. Anyway, Stanionis, he's been gaslit. He's got Stockholm Syndrome or something. And as far as how much Eddie Hearn offered him for the Boots Ennis fight, this guy here, as you can see at the top of the tweet, he's saying 300K. I don't know where he gets this figure from, but he's saying 300K. And Eddie Hearn said I wish it was so little. It was far more than that. Somebody says you need to pay Stanionis at least $1 million. And Eddie Hearn says it was far more than $1 million. Well, he says it was far more than that. I'm not sure whether he was referring to the 300K or the $1 million. Irrespective of who he replied to, Eddie Hearn's a man on the move. Man on the move. He's got a lot of tweets coming his way. So I don't know whether he was looking at the 1 million when he wrote that last reply or referring to the 300K. But either way, if Stanionis has turned down, first of all, he should be mad that his team, his advisor Al Heyman, never told him about the offer. He should be mad about that. It's bizarre that he's not. And secondly, if he has been offered $1 million or more than $1 million to fight Boots Ennis, how's he not taking the fight? What else is he going to do at 147 pounds right now? He does have some type of belt, right, Stanionis? But is he getting like more than $1 million a fight at the moment? I couldn't imagine he is. He doesn't have that kind of following, does he? I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, that's the Boots Ennis, Eddie Hearn, Stanionis situation. Again, Eddie Hearn does talk BS, but I suspected as soon as I saw that whole narrative being pushed that Eddie Hearn never really sent the offer, I was like, no, PBC, they cannot be trusted to tell their fighters about all the offers that come in. And even when the fighters do know about the offers that come in, PBC will somehow talk them out of it. The way they apparently talked Deontay Wilder out of taking the DAZN deal. How they apparently talked Luis Ortiz out of taking $7 million to fight Anthony Joshua. Crazy. So yeah, that's that. Moving on from that, I covered Atama just in a live stream earlier on today on the other channel. Ngannou thinking about fighting Deontay Wilder. Well, Turki Al-Sheikh, if you guys remember this, Turki Al-Sheikh was saying not too long ago that he's willing to make Deontay Wilder versus, is it Derek Chisora? Is that the fight he talked about? You guys correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. It was the Chisora fight, right? Swear it was the Chisora fight. Can you guys hear me in the chat? I hope you can. Hope I'm not here talking to myself. Somebody let me know if you can hear me in the chat. Okay, you can hear me. Cool. Yeah, so I think it was Derek Chisora who Turki was saying he'd be willing to, match with Deontay Wilder. So if he's willing to make Deontay Wilder versus Derek Chisora, then maybe he'll be willing to make Deontay Wilder versus Francis Ngannou. Ngannou's got a fight coming up, an MMA fight in PFL, which has now absorbed, what are they called now? Bellator, right? So he's got that to deal with first. But afterwards, maybe if Deontay Wilder still wants it, because it's kind of a unique situation. If Wilder were to fight Derek Chisora, he's going in there against a real boxer who's coming in there to try and take his head off and so on, who's got a lot of boxing experience and who defensively is a lot better than Ngannou. Ngannou is an MMA guy, for one, and for two, at least in boxing, because he might win his MMA fight, at least in boxing, he's coming off a knockout defeat. A knockout defeat that was just as bad, if not worse, than the knockout defeat that Wilder just suffered at the hands of Zhang. So, really and truly, you could argue that it's just as dangerous for Francis Ngannou as it is for Deontay Wilder. They're in a very similar position. So, maybe Wilder will be interested. We'll see. I'm not sure if Wilder's got any money issues at the moment because of the breakup he had with his ex. Are they in a custody battle over their child? I don't know. But if Wilder wants to make a bit more money in a fight which maybe isn't as dangerous as fighting a real boxer, but again, still a certain amount of prestige attached to it because Ngannou's a big name, then maybe he could look at fighting him. Maybe they can talk to the Saudis and see what it is. I don't really have much interest in seeing Deontay Wilder back in the ring against any real boxer, but against Ngannou, I'll probably watch it. I'm not going to lie, I'll probably watch Wilder fight Ngannou out of curiosity. Yeah? And I'm not even sure who I would pick because Ngannou, I don't think will be as shy as Deontay Wilder to let his hands go and really get stuck in. Deontay Wilder just seems so terrified of getting hit these days. So, I don't know. Ngannou does have a good left hook. He's got long arms. I reckon they're not too much shorter than Wilder's. In fact, they might be a similar, might have a similar reach to Deontay Wilder. So he'll be able to touch Wilder with the jab. You'll be able to get him with a left hook. It's an interesting one. Shout out to Ocean Blue. Shout out to Matt. Black Dynamite says Wilder's power was non-existent in his last fight. Yeah, you see, the thing about Wilder is that his emotional intensity is something that he used to channel into his punches. When you take the emotional intensity away, it reduces his power. Does that make sense? He was a guy that fought off emotion. So he needed to be in this emotional state in order to generate that kind of power. Shout out to Outmatch in the place. Yes, yes. So yeah, long story short, I wouldn't mind seeing Deontay Wilder against Ngannou. If he's going to fight again at all, that is a fight that I would say is not too bad for him, Francis Ngannou. Okay, 4 Fox says, Malik Scott messed up Wilder's technique. That too, I agree with you on that. He tried to make Wilder a boxer, and that took away from Wilder's power. He's not thinking about power as much. He's thinking about moving and getting away from the shots. So yeah, I definitely think that was a contributing factor as well. But I think the main issue for Wilder, more so than technique, is the mindset. He doesn't have that intense mindset anymore, that emotional intensity. Yeah, Iron Inspector says, I agree, Wilder used to swing like a madman, but his fights with Zhang and Parker, he didn't throw a meaningful punch until the later rounds. Indeed. He's not the same guy anymore. I mean, even in, see, because some people will argue they didn't throw a punch in the Luis Ortiz rematch until the later rounds. But look at Deontay Wilder's body language. Look at his eyes. Look at the expression on his face in the Luis Ortiz rematch. He had an intense look on his face the whole time. It was weird because he wasn't throwing any punches, but he just had that intensity about him. And he didn't seem uncomfortable at all when Luis Ortiz was throwing shots at him. Compare that to the Deontay Wilder who fought Zheli Zhang. It's night and day. Against Zhang, he was petrified, it looked to me. When Zhang pinned him on the ropes and in the corners several times in rounds prior to the knockout, Wilder wasn't even looking at the target. He was looking at the floor and everywhere else. He just looked like he was scared to death in there. Indeed. Ocean Blue says the Amazon Brew really took Wilder's fighting spirit. I think it was a combination of things. I think Tyson Fury, we have to say, the way he knocked Wilder out, twice in a row, that I think took a lot of Deontay's fire out of him. And when you combine it with the Amazon Brew, right, the ayahuasca, yeah, he's not the same guy. Because people who take the Amazon Brew, they have kind of like, a Scrooge experience where the ghost of Christmas past takes you and shows you what a mean person you've been to everyone, how badly you've treated people. That's what they say happens when you take the Amazon Brew. Maybe not the first time you take it, but eventually if you take it a few times, you're going to get that Scrooge experience, ghost of Christmas past type experience. And many people who have taken it say it changes them profoundly. They'll be sitting there in tears thinking about or being shown, right? Like Ghost of Christmas Past style, all the bad things they've done to people, how much their actions negatively affect people around them. It's like a real emotional experience. And so Deontay Wilder, if you remember, after he fought Robert Helenius, he was in tears at a press conference after knocking Helenius out, talking about how dangerous boxing is, that you don't understand the fighters are putting their lives on the line and, this, that, and the other. And you're thinking, where's all this coming from? Deontay don't normally talk like this after knocking somebody out. I know he and Helenius were cool, but still, you don't normally get that kind of thing from Deontay Wilder. And I'm sure that was down to, at least partly, the ayahuasca, the Amazon brew. Shout out to G-Man. Yes, G-Man in the house. Let me try to pronounce this name. Is it Welch? Welchmers? Sorry if I'm butchering your name. He says, does anyone know Itama's actual height? I've seen it billed as anywhere between 6'1" and 6'7". 6'7"? He's nowhere near that tall. On BoxRec, he's listed at 6'2.5". To me, that sounds about right. 6'2.5". Originally, I saw him listed at 6'5". But they've revised that down, and now they list him at 6'2.5". I think that's probably about right. Although, somebody was telling me the other day that they saw Moses Itama recently, like within the past week. They saw him in person in Mayfair. And it was, shout out to Solomon. I don't know if he's watching, but yeah, Solomon, he said he saw him in Mayfair. And according to Solomon, Itama, under his estimation, is at least 6'4". So I don't know. Yeah, I think Itama's probably closer to 6'2" than 6'5". Yeah, I reckon he's closer to 6'2". G-Man says, I played some mates the Chris D'Elia Eminem clip, and they can't look at him the same after. That Chris D'Elia Eminem impersonation is undefeated. Honestly, it never gets old. It never gets old. Outmatch says, doing some Mike Tyson style marketing with Itama's height. Indeed. For the longest time, Mike Tyson was listed as 5'11.5", as if that half inch made all the difference, But in reality, he's like 5'10" at best. So they added an inch and a half on in height for all these years. I don't know why. Because it's not like a 5'11.5" heavyweight isn't still short for a heavyweight. So it really doesn't make much difference whether he's 5'10" or 5'11.5". I'm not sure why they insisted on that extra inch and a half. Strange. And also, Mike Tyson is the only boxer I've ever seen that wears lifts in the ring. You know what lifts are? They're like kind of platform shoes. Well, actually, lifts, I think, are some type of like, is it inner sole? I'm not sure how you describe it, but those things that you would put inside your shoe to give you like an extra couple of inches in height. Whereas Mike Tyson had boxing boots that had unusually thick soles at the back. If you look at Mike Tyson's boxing boots, go look at photographs of Mike Tyson in his prime when he was fighting, Carla Truth Williams and Trevor Berbick and all those people. Go look at the photos and you'll notice that his boots have got a really thick sole at the back, a really thick heel to give him like an extra couple inches in height. I've never seen that in boxing before. Normally, boxing boots have got an extremely thin sole. This allows you to feel the canvas with your feet, A very thin sole, less than an inch thick, most boxing boots. Whereas Mike Tyson's boxing boots, the heel must have been at least maybe an inch and a half or something like that. Was that to try and live up to the 5'11.5" billing? I don't know. Strange. Oh yeah, of course, G-Man, you've met Itama. Yeah, I remember you interviewed him. Of course. G-Man says, Talma probably. Hang on, where I've lost the comment here. Where's it gone? Yeah, G-Man says, met Talma a few times. I'd say 6'3", isn't towering over me, and I'm about 5'11". Okay. Anid says, is Talma the English Big Baby Anderson? Well, time will tell. I don't think so, because Talma is a lot more technically correct than Anderson. Long before Anderson lost to Bacoli, many of us were talking about the technical errors that Anderson makes, especially the lean back and some of the mistakes he makes with his footwork. So we were pointing these things out long before he lost to Bacoli. With Talma, he doesn't make anywhere near as many fundamental, glaring mistakes. Of course, he makes mistakes. All fighters make mistakes, pretty much. But they're not big, glaring mistakes like with Anderson. So I don't think he'll be the UK Jared Anderson, but time will tell. Apologies if I'm not getting to every comment here. I'm trying to do a catch-up job. Kat says, I think the UFC does something similar with reach. If I remember correctly, in the UFC, Ngannou was listed at 83 inches reach. But for the Joshua fight, it was 78 inches. Quite an exaggeration. Well, actually, I tend to believe the UFC reach. I don't think Ngannou's only got a 78-inch reach. That doesn't sound right to me, because when he was fighting Joshua, to me, his arms look longer. And it's not as if he's got like really narrow shoulders or something where he could still have long arms but a relatively short reach. No, he's got really broad shoulders. And unless he's got tiny hands, and I can't imagine he does, then I tend to suspect that the 83-inch reach measurement is correct. And the 78-inch thing is incorrect. That's what I tend to suspect. Okay, Welshmer says, I never understood why Tyson Fury lies about his height. Imagine being 6'7" and insecure about your height. I know, it's crazy. It is crazy. The man is very tall. Taller than, 95% of men? If not more than that. But he feels the need to stand on his tiptoes in every photo he's in, if he's in the photo with other tall people. It's a strange thing. Sometimes when he's not even in the photo with other tall people, he'll stand on his tiptoes, but he doesn't need to. And, claims he's 6'9" when he's closer to 6'7". No idea what that's all about. Outmatch says, yeah, the heel on his boots was weird. Apparently he was a size 15 too. Yeah, size 15 US. So I guess that's like size 13 UK or something like that. There or there. He was a size 14 or 15 US, which was equivalent to about maybe between 12 and 13 UK, which is pretty big feet for a guy of his height. I mean, not crazy, but it's pretty big. Shout out to, I think waffles are great. What kind of waffles? Potato waffles or the sweet waffles? Or all waffles? Maybe all waffles are great. Triple R says, is that why Mike Tyson was recorded at 5'11" sometimes because of his boots? He was officially listed at 5'10". No, he was officially listed at 5'11 and a half throughout most of his boxing career. It's only right at the very, very end of his career that they started listing him at 5'10". I think maybe for the Lennox Lewis fight, but all the way through his prime, when he came back, when he became two-time heavyweight champion, he was always listed at 5'11 and a half. G-Man says Klitschko is 6'5", but needed to add height at face-offs. Yeah, he used to put lifts in his shoes. He did it for the purposes of intimidation, though. So with Klitschko, you know, it is maybe a bit of insecurity on his behalf, but in the context of fighting, I don't think Klitschko was wearing lifts in his shoes on a regular basis in the gym or when he's out and about and tiptoeing in photos. I don't think Klitschko was doing all that. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. It was only for like face-offs and stuff like that. They'd put stuff in his shoes to try and appear taller than his opponent, to try and intimidate him. I mean, Sonny Liston used to do similar things to that. He used to wear his boxing robe and he'd put like towels underneath the boxing robe to make himself look bigger, you know? To make himself look more bulky than he actually was. I mean, he was already a muscular guy, but he wanted to intimidate the opponent as much as possible by looking like the Incredible Hulk. I think waffles are great. Says, never had a waffle I didn't like. Yeah, I like waffles as well. Potato waffles, old school. Do people still eat potato waffles now? And it's an English thing, isn't it? Because in America, I swear they don't eat potato waffles. Or do they? I don't think they do. I've been to America. I've never seen potato waffles anywhere from what I can recall. I think it's more of an English thing, or at least a European thing. Potato waffles. But yeah, potato waffles are good, but sweet waffles are better for me. There's a few places actually, but one in particular that does good chicken and waffles in Costa Rica, in Tamarindo. It's called Waffle Monkey. Any of you who ever visit Costa Rica, check out Waffle Monkey in Tamarindo. Outmatch says, how's your Spanish coming along? Terribly. I've never been good with languages. I really don't pick up languages well. I'm trying to learn a couple of African languages as we speak, and it's going disastrously bad. It's just not going. The words don't stick. You know? The words don't stick. Yeah. 1 second here. Ocean Blue says, all waffles are good. Haven't had potato waffles in about 12 years. Team Batman Boxing, sweet waffles definitely much better. Yeah, I prefer sweet waffles. Potato waffles are like what? Iceland food, innit? Potato waffles come along with fish fingers, chicken nuggets. They're in that type of bracket. Yeah, I've seen the photo that you're referring to there of David Price and Tyson Fury. Yeah, I've seen that photo. In fact, let me see if I can get that photo up here. Let me see if I can put that photo on screen so you guys can see what the man is talking about. See if I got it. In the picture archive here. Unfortunately not. Unfortunately, it's not here. I could have sworn I would have saved it. Am I using the wrong words? Try this. Surely it's here. Oh yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, let me get this up. Let me get this picture up so you guys can see it for yourselves. David Price, Tyson Fury. Get this picture up on screen here. There it is. So you guys can see it there. David Price with Tyson Fury. This is obviously when Tyson Fury was very heavy. Now, if you wanted to play devil's advocate, you could try to say, well, the extra weight that Fury was carrying maybe compressed his spine a bit and cut him down by an inch or so. But still, Fury's supposed to be an inch taller than David Price. Fury's listed at, well, he claims he's 6'9". David Price is 6'8". Here, Tyson Fury's what, at least an inch, maybe an inch and a half shorter than David Price? So is the extra weight really going to shrink him down by 2 inches? I'm not so sure about that. You know, if his spine was, I mean, I guess it's not just compressing the spine, but maybe if you're not fully standing up straight because of the weight or whatever. But yeah, I just don't think Tyson Fury is as tall as he claims to be. Man is not as tall as he claims to be. And I've seen many other pictures of Tyson Fury. You know, when he started, when he was doing that stuff in UFC, not in UFC, excuse me, in WWE, there was a couple of those WWE guys who were actually listed at 6'9", who were clearly taller than Tyson Fury. I mean, clearly taller. Magic Johnson, I think, is listed at 6'9" as well, right? Let me look up Magic Johnson's official height. And there's a picture of Tyson Fury standing next to Magic Johnson, and Magic Johnson's towering over him. In fact, I should say pause. I should say pause whenever I even mention Magic Johnson's name, because if you think about it, it needs a pause, that name, innit? Magic Johnson. Yo. Let me look this up there. Magic Johnson height. Yeah, he's listed at 6'9" tall. Now let me see if I can find a picture of Tyson Fury and Magic Johnson. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, here we go. So Magic Johnson is 6'9", right? Let me get this picture up. You guys can see it. So add it here. And there's another one here where Tyson Fury is trying to steal, where he's trying to stand on his tiptoes and appear just as tall. You know, Fury with his funny business all the time. All right, one sec. There's a few pictures here with Fury and Magic Johnson. Let's get these pictures up. Let's add this here. One sec, peeps. Yeah, look at Tyson Fury there. You guys see that picture on screen? Magic Johnson listed at 6'9", next to Tyson Fury, who's supposed to be 6'9". I mean, are you having a laugh? 6'9", my back foot. He's not close to 6'9". That's him with Magic Johnson. And there's a closer picture you guys will see here. See, that one is also Tyson Fury with Magic Johnson. Closer up. And then this one where Fury, of course, is doing his best tiptoes. Where is he at? Yeah, here. This is what Fury typically does. That, you see, because he's standing on his tiptoes to try and steal a couple inches in height. I don't know what that's all about. Yeah, if you were a short guy, okay, I can understand you having that insecurity. The man's at least 6'7", 6'6", 6'7" at least. So why would you be doing all this? It's weird. Yeah, Fury is he's an odd one. He is an odd one. Literally dwarfed by Magic Johnson there. And that's one of the things that's always, although I have seen Fury next to Joshua, although, you know, I'm not sure if I saw his feet because he might have been standing on his tiptoes or trying some funny business. He definitely looks taller than Joshua, who's obviously listed at 6'6". Darren Jones says, wow, all those years and I've never clocked on the name Magic Johnson. Me neither. Me neither. It was only just thinking about it now. I was like, hang on, that name needs the biggest pause. Yeah. S.A says there's a boxer in Sheffield called Red Johnson. Sounds painful. Okay, Afro Jam says there's an old article on The Guardian before his fight with Vlad where it states he's 6'7.5". Okay, that sounds legit. I mean, closer to his actual height, his real height. Lex Gaming says Hatman Itama versus Bacoli. Who you got? Right now, Bacoli. Yeah, I don't think the style, the experience, the size, and so on, I don't think that matches up well for Itama right now. I could be wrong. Maybe the young man would surprise me in such a fight, but I'd have to go with Bacoli in that one at the moment. As I said in a recent video about Moses Itama, even though I think he can, if he gets an opportunity, beat Mike Tyson's record against certain fighters in the heavyweight division, I don't think he's going to be able to beat all the top guys right now. No, I don't. I don't think he's ready for Usyk, Fury, I don't think he's ready for those guys. But Dubois, I reckon he'd have a decent shot. Outmatch says, I randomly came across Thomas Golder's channel earlier. Blast from the past. Yeah, Golder was a legend of my old Facebook group. Hilarious. A lot of people didn't get Golder and they didn't understand why it was funny. They used to say, oh, you're an idiot. Why are you claiming you've got this amazing punching power? You're rubbish. You're an idiot. And I'm like, you do realize that he's being, you know, this is like him having fun. He's trolling basically. But somehow people missed the joke and they started attacking him and stuff. I always found that weird. Golder's hilarious. Afro Jam says, how do you punish corrupt refereeing and judging? Do you think there should be VAR for all major fights? Yeah, I think there should be VAR. I think there should be. Because the argument against VAR is that it would break up the flow of a fight. But you can just do it in between rounds and then change the decision after the fact, right? Just like they did with the Virgil Ortiz fight the other week. When the referee missed the knockdown Harvey Dock in the first round, he consulted with the ringside officials. They had a look at it, and a couple rounds later, they said, okay, we're taking a point off. That was a knockdown. So yeah, I think that they should have VAR for every major fight. Yes. Zombie says, would it be better if a Talma beat a champion rather than picking up a vacant belt? A lot of people wouldn't count it. Well, whatever they think of it is what they think of it. The records won't lie. And the records will say that he was a world champion. You know, it is what it is. I mean, Floyd Patterson picked up a vacant belt because Rocky Marciano retired at the top without taking a loss. So Floyd Patterson fought Archie Moore for the titles that Rocky Marciano vacated, and Patterson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history. So if Patterson could be recognized as the youngest heavyweight champion in history up to that point, picking up a vacant belt, then I don't see why it would be any different for a Talma. I mean, Lennox Lewis, he didn't even fight for his first belt. He won a final eliminator against Razor Ruddock, and then he got elevated to full champion when Riddick Bowe refused to face him as his mandatory. Back then they called Lewis, a paper champion. These days they call it email champion. Our match says, who's more of a physical specimen, Golda or Tebow? God, Tebow in his prime. Tebow in his prime was like the French version of Francis Ngannou and Brock Lesnar combined. So might have to go Tebow. Grind says, how do you see Shakur versus Tank? Does Shakur have a chance of beating Tank? I think he's got a good chance. If he's got, as the Americans say, enough dog in him, I think he's got a very good chance. I mean, we saw Frank Martin outbox Tank Davis to the point where Davis was starting to look a little anxious. Yeah, normally Davis has got this kind of, even when he's losing a few rounds, he's got this air of inevitability about him. Like, inevitably, he's going to land his shot and take you out. But he had a couple of anxious rounds there against Frank Martin, where he didn't seem quite as sure as normal. He got the job done in the end. I think I picked it bang on the right round. I think I said Tank in 8, was it? Or Tank in 9? Maybe I said Tank in 9 and he did it in 8. Something like that. So I expected him to get him out of there in that kind of time frame. But there were some anxious rounds in there. And that's just Frank Martin. Shakur Stevenson is another level again in terms of ability. So, yeah, I think Stevenson's got a good chance. But at some point, especially if Tank Davis is getting outboxed, he's going to start throwing the kitchen sink. And Tank Davis is a tremendous puncher. A lot of people don't like him because of his persona and, he's not the most classy guy in the world. Put all that aside. Tank Davis is one of the best punchers I've seen in boxing in a long time. For a guy in the lower weight classes to be knocking people out as consistently as he is, that's unusual. Yeah, I know he drained Ryan Garcia, this, that, and the other, but just look at his track record over the past few years for starching people. He's a tremendous puncher. And, at some point, he's going to let the shots fly against Shakur Stevenson if that fight were to happen. And Stevenson's going to need to show some real dog to get through those moments. Because even if Tank is only hitting you on the shoulder or in the body, yeah, those shots are going to affect you. So that's a fight where I would expect Stevenson to have to dig down at some point when Tank starts really coming at him. And that's where I'm not sure if Stevenson would come through or not. I don't know whether he's built of that kind of stuff. I'm not saying he isn't, but I don't know. He might be a little, sweet on the inside. We'll see. I mean, people talk about Inoue, and Inoue is a tremendous puncher as well. Doesn't speak English, obviously, so nobody can really know in the Anglosphere what kind of person Inoue is. I mean, typically the Japanese are kind of reserved, so you wouldn't imagine he's a big trash talker or very disrespectful, but you never know. Since I'm assuming none of you guys speak Japanese or understand Japanese, I don't. But Inoue is liked in the boxing world in a way that Tank Davis isn't. And Inoue, obviously tremendous achievements, undisputed and all that. Better achievements than Tank. But who's the guy that Inoue could have fought? One of Eddie Hearn's fighters, I forget his name now. And he's basically turned it down. And also Inoue, his handler is called Mr. Honda. Eddie Hearn always refers to him as Mr. Honda. He apparently doesn't want Inoue to be working with the Saudis. I guess they don't trust the Saudis, right? They think the Saudis might steal their fighter or take the control that they have over their fighter away from them. But the point I'm making is not so much about the politics, but more about the ability. Inoue is a tremendous puncher. Tank is that kind of, Tank is, I want to say a bigger puncher, he's a bigger guy. But in the lower weight classes, who are the two best punchers? Inoue and Tank, basically. Long story short, that's the point I'm getting at. And they're very comparable pound for pound in terms of the devastating effect of their shots. Outmatch says, I'm sure the hentai fans in the chat speak a bit of Japanese. Okay, Afro Jam says, Nakatani and Inoue are both top rank. Nakatani is a hell of a puncher too. Now, the guy who... Yeah, that's the guy, Adrian. Bang on. Akhmadaliev. That's the guy I was thinking of. Akhmadaliev, yeah. Inoue was offered a fight with him, and for some reason, he's looking the other way. So I don't know what that's all about. I can't imagine it's Inoue who's worried, but maybe his handlers. I don't know. You guys let me know what you think. Why isn't Inoue fighting Akhmadaliev? What is all that about? Bob Aram says Akhmadaliev doesn't sell. Inoue sells. So it really doesn't matter if Akhmadaliev doesn't sell. Inoue sells, right? How many of Inoue's opponents sell? Does Steve Fulton sell? So that's not really a valid excuse from Bob Aram as far as I'm concerned. Four Fox says, I want to see Inoue versus Brandon Figueroa. Lex Gaming says Tank over anybody. Outmatch says I was impressed by Inoue against Neary. It was good to see him react well to an early scare. Yeah, he reacted very well. Very well. The way Inoue reacted to that knockdown, it was as if it woke him up and he rose to the challenge. You know, it's like, if you look at Inoue's body language, he didn't see it. This is my perception, you know, based on the way he was reacting. It's as if he didn't see it as a crisis. He saw it as a challenge, because he was kind of like revved up by the knockdown, you know? It was like, okay, yeah, let's go. Okay, you want to give me a challenge? Let's do it. And that's what you want to see in a fighter. Obviously, you don't want to see them be reckless when they come back at the guy, but you want to see that kind of defiance in them, where a knockdown or getting hurt will switch them on and just G them up for more of a challenge. That's what you want to see. What you don't want to see is a fighter panic, start feeling sorry for themselves, look like a deer in the headlight, deer in the headlights. That's what you don't want to see. And if the guy's really hurt and he's wobbling, you want to see him calm, because the opponent is going to be rushing at him trying to finish it, typically. If the guy who's hurt is calm, Mayweather against Mosley is a good example. He kept his composure and stayed calm and tried to still be the boss. He tried to still command the situation, even though he was hurt and his legs were gone. And by the end of the round, Mayweather kind of was in control of the situation again, as weird as it is. He bossed that situation. Yeah, Team Batman Boxing says, Inoue got up and styled on him even more for the audacity. Love it when the monster showboats. Yeah, that was entertaining. That was entertaining. And the knockout was great. Hatman says the way he went down was so dramatic, proper Japanese theatrics. Yes. Spark says Hearn piping Nicholson apparently. Yeah, I've heard the rumors, but who knows? Could just be people making stuff up on the internet. I've got no idea if it's really true. Grind saying Abdullah Mason is the next American great. We shall see. He looks good right now. Lex Gaiman says, Hatman, who's the best puncher in the heavyweight division right now? I want to say Zhang. I think it's between Zhang and Jalalov. Yeah, between those two. And I'll probably say for just pure brute force, Zhang, but Jalalov's a bit more precise and consistent with his backhand. Although, he doesn't have the two-handed power that Zhang's got, because he's got crazy power in both hands. That right hook up front, that'll put you on the moon. I mean, never mind the backhand. So I want to say between Zhang and Jalalov. Yeah. AJ's improved his power. So AJ's, I want to say at least top 4, maybe top 3 punches right now, because he's really sitting down in the shots. He's rotating. He's leaning in. And I think he is punching harder than ever. I don't just think that's Eddie Hearn hype. I think that's actually the reality. That's my opinion. Yeah, I saw that. Wiz says it's 100% true. Yeah, I saw that, but again, I don't see that as a smoking gun. It's not like Eddie Hearn's the only person that owns that pair of Jordans, And who knows if it, yeah. I'd need to see actual concrete proof to convince me. I'm not saying it's impossible, but again, I'm not sold on it yet. Black Dynamite says Adonis Stevenson versus Michael Moorer. at 175. That's a great matchup. I'll probably go Michael Moorer on that one. Probably go Michael Moorer. Moorer was defensively more responsible than Stevenson, I would say. And he was a tremendous puncher himself. At 175, he was bigger than Stevenson. Stevenson, 5'10", 5'11", very long arms, long reach. But Michael Moorer's reach would have been about similar. Michael Moorer might have had 76-inch reach or so. In fact, let me look it up to see how accurate I was, how close I was. Let's see what BoxRec have got his reach listed at. I reckon it's about 76. Let's have a look here. 78. I actually underestimated his reach. So he actually had a longer reach than Adonis Stevenson. I don't know what his arm length is compared to Stevenson, because arm length and reach are different measurements, but 78-inch reach for Michael Moorer, 6'2". So at least 3 inches taller than Stevenson, slightly longer reach. Moorer went all the way up to heavyweight, you know? So I would go with Michael Moorer in that fight. I'm not saying Stevenson would have no chance, but Moorer was a beast at 175. In fact, talk to any of the old school Kronk guys, the guys who were in the Kronk in the 1990s, late 80s, going into the 90s. Talk to any of them. You can find them on Instagram and, various places on social media. And most of them will tell you that the most lethal guy who is kicking the most butt in the Kronk gym during those years was Michael Moorer. Yeah, he don't get a lot of credit or fanfare for it, but during that time when he was at 175, he was destroying people in the Kronk. I'm telling you, he was a menace in that gym. A menace. And that's why he had to go up to heavyweight ultimately, because nobody was trying to fight him, the 175. So, yeah. Ocean Blue says, I saw Bryant Jennings had a fight last night. Thought he retired. Yeah, that was his first fight back for quite a few years. And I'm not sure why he's come back to boxing. But as these fighters, so many old fighters say, it's like a drug. They just can't stay away. It's an addiction. Especially when they see their contemporaries, fighters who are a similar age to themselves, getting big paydays and still having success, And maybe the success that Bryant Jennings had against Joe Joyce has spurred him on. Because Joyce is still there or thereabouts, right? At least in the past, year or so, he's been there or thereabouts. Now, Adrian says, Hatman, did any of the gold medalists stand out to you at this Olympics? Truth be told, I really didn't watch any of the fights. The only fight I saw was the Delicious Ori fight, and that's just a horrible name, by the way. How could you name your child Delicious Ori? Sounds like some type of cookie or biscuit. And on top of that, it sounds like the name of a stripper or something, a male stripper. Delicious Ori. I mean, come on. How could you do that to your child and give them that name? Shocker. Nigerian parents are known for giving weird names. Not all of them, obviously, but it's kind of a thing in Nigeria. They come out with weird names for their kids. But yeah, I saw Delicious Ori's fight, and he didn't impress me at all. He was jumping up and down, saying he got robbed. He's now saying he's depressed after apparently getting robbed. Did he deserve to win the fight? In amateur boxing, the scoring criteria is different. And he'll know that anyway, since he was an amateur. Robbed is probably a strong word for that one. But when you've got all the British fans, the people watching the Olympics saying the same thing, it reinforces it in his head. Philip Answer says Tommy Fury called his kid Bambi. Yeah, that's crazy as well. That's crazy as well. Bambi. That's messed up. That is messed up. Matt says Delicious Ori doesn't look like he has a particularly high ceiling at all. The Talma looks like the only British hope long-term at heavyweight. I agree. Okay, interesting question here. Hatman, who do you think would have won between a prime Riddick Bowe or Anthony Joshua? That's a really, really good one because stylistically I can completely see how Bowe could give Anthony Joshua problems. That's a very, very interesting fight. I would probably go with Anthony. This is going to be very controversial, right? Because as far as most people are concerned, AJ would have been not even a gatekeeper, a journeyman in the 90s. That's how most people see it. I'm not saying AJ would have been the top dog in the 90s, but I think he could have mixed it. And, bear in mind, Riddick Bowe got the daylights beat out of him by Andrew Gallotta. If Andrew Gallotta can do that to Riddick Bowe, could Anthony Joshua do something similar? I think so. I think it's, I wouldn't necessarily pick AJ in the fight, but given what Gallotta did to Bowe, it's very conceivable to me that AJ could win. If I had my last tenner and my life depended on it, who would I bet on? I might go with Bowe. Because I really like Bowe's jab, and he was very fluid. But then again, Bowe actually had a bit of an overrated chin. A lot of people don't realize that Bowe was hurt by Tony Tubbs when he fought him. He was hurt by Tyrell Biggs. These guys are not punchers. Riddick Bowe really didn't fight many punches in his career. The only punches he fought were like what? Gallotta, who beat the living daylights out of him twice. And other than Gallotta, Bowe really didn't fight any punches. Never fought Razor Ruddock, never fought Mike Tyson, never fought Lennox Lewis in the pros, never fought, Shannon Brigg. There were plenty of punches around. And somehow Riddick Bowe never got in the ring with him. So maybe his team knew something that the public weren't quite as clued up about. And of course, Evander Holyfield dropped him badly in their third fight. Had him completely out, nearly. So when you factor that in, AJ's a sharp puncher with both hands. Maybe AJ chins him, if he catches him right. But it's a very interesting fight, so thank you for the question. Okay, Tarika says, who do you think AJ wouldn't beat in the 90s? I don't think he beat Lennox Lewis. Who else wouldn't he beat in the 90s? Riddick Bowe fight, that's a 50-50. I'm not sure which way to go on it. I definitely pick Lewis over him. I'll pick a Beabucci over Anthony Joshua, although Beabucci was late 90s, early 2000s. I'll pick a Beabucci over him. I'll probably pick Holyfield in his prime. Not the Holyfield who fought Tyson. I reckon Anthony Joshua could beat the Holyfield who fought Tyson or the Holyfield who fought Lewis because he was more stationary at that point. He could still move, but he wasn't as quick on his feet. He wasn't as light on his feet as the Holyfield who fought Buster Douglas. Even though the Holyfield who fought Douglas was very light, I think he was only about 208 pounds, 206. He was very fast at that weight. And I might pick him to outpoint AJ. That version of Holyfield, I think might have been a bit too fast and too mobile. And he could mix it on the inside as well. So I might go with Holyfield to beat AJ, Lewis to beat AJ, Bo, 50-50, unsure. Mike Tyson, having seen the way AJ's career has panned out to date, I'd pick the 80s version of Tyson over Joshua, and probably the 90s, the pre-Holyfield 90s version of Tyson as well over Anthony Joshua. Yeah. BG says Joshua versus Morrison, AJ all day. AJ beats Tommy Morrison all day. Corey Sanders, that's an interesting one. That is very interesting. Sanders or Joshua. Very, very interesting fight. Sanders could definitely chin him if he caught him, but Sanders didn't have the greatest chin himself. So that's it depends how hungry Corey Sanders was for victory. You know, if he just was dogged in the fight and absolutely determined no matter what to get the knockout, maybe he could have done it. But I'd probably make AJ a slight favorite over Corey Sanders because he's been more consistent. Sanders was a very up and down fighter. Very up and down. He got knocked out by a guy called Nate Tubbs. That was one of Mike Tyson's sparring partners back in the days. Nate Tubbs was a journeyman, really. He was he the nephew? I don't think he was the son. I think he might have been the nephew of Tony Tubbs. Zombie Dome says Old Man Foreman. I pick AJ over Old Man Foreman. If you're talking about the Foreman who beat Michael Moorer, I pick AJ over him. Yeah, definitely. I mean, Old Man Foreman really got a couple of gift decisions late on in his career. When he fought a guy called Axel Schultz, most neutral observers thought Schultz beat him. When he fought Lou Savarese, I think it was Lou Savarese. Yeah, a lot of people thought that Savarese had done enough to win. And these are like the most obscure opponents you could think of that Bob Arum was finding for George Foreman. At the time, Foreman was going around talking about lineal because he'd been stripped of the belts by this point. So he had a couple Mickey Mouse belts. I think one of them was the WBF. Oh yeah, WBF. Go look that up. He had the WBF belt and he was calling himself lineal champion, and Bob Arum was doing the whole Foreman circus thing against these obscure opponents. That's why I never bought into Tyson Fury's lineal thing. Because, I mean, think about the carte blanche you have calling yourself world champion when you don't have a belt and you just got this lineal thing. You can literally fight anyone. You've got no mandatory obligations. If you matched yourself right, you could stay unbeaten for years with that whole lineal nonsense. Do you know what I mean? So I don't rate that lineal thing at all. Especially now you've got multiple belts. You know, back in the 1 belt or 2 belt era, lineal had a bit more weight to it. But now that there's 4 belts, like lineal doesn't really mean anything anymore. Do you know what I mean? Because let's say when there was 1 belt, that 1 belt represented the lineal. And even when there was 2 belts, one of them represented lineal and the other one didn't, right? So there was a 50-50 chance if you fought for a title, you would become lineal, and there was a 50-50 chance that you're going to be fighting the best guy in the division. When there's 4 belts, obviously all 4 guys can't be the best guy in the division. Do you know what I mean? And the one who's lineal won't necessarily be even top 3. So lineal to me doesn't really mean much anymore. Adonis Stevenson, even though I liked him as a fighter, he avoided tough competition through the last third of his career. And he was just milking the WBC champion status. You know, I know there was an opportunity for Kovalev to fight. He actually ducked Kovalev, and then later on somebody reminded me Kovalev turned down the opportunity to fight Stevenson. So swings and roundabouts, but still, Stevenson was happy to fight up in Quebec, taking, relatively easy fights, the Andre Fonfaras of the world, those type of guys, ex-champions like Tavoris Cloud. He certainly wasn't striving for greatness, was he? Eventually, of course, he did fight Gvozdyk, and he got beaten, damaged in that fight. But up until that point, Stevenson was milking the WBC strap, having a laugh, and he was the lineal champion. That's the point I'm making. Andre Ward wasn't the lineal champion, neither was Kovalev. Stevenson was. But that's why I don't take the whole lineal thing very seriously. Four Fox says, Larry Donald ate bold shots at that press conference easily. Yeah, Larry Donald had a great chin. He had a great chin. He had a great chin in his prime. Taking them bare knuckle shots off Bo at the press conference. Yeah. And Bo was a scumbag for that. That's one of the worst bully moves I've ever seen. Larry Donald was just standing there being very respectful at the press conference, And Riddick Bowe turned around and cracked him bare knuckle on the chin. Could have broke his jaw. Unbelievable bully tactics from Riddick Bowe. Terrible, actually. But there was a lot of stuff like that going on in the 90s. Was a wild time. It was way more wild than this era. This era you got the Dylan Whites and the Chisoras, but the 90s was more wild than that. You know what I mean? You have people actually landing massive bare knuckle punches at press conferences. Like it was nothing. Herbie Hyde and Michael Bent had a straightener as well. Before their fight. Herbie Hyde, did he cut Michael Bent when he hit him? He definitely dropped him. Michael Bent's suit was all ripped. After Herbie Hyde two-pieced him. Well, yeah, Larry Donald had a great chin. Larry Donald was a weirdo, though, because he was like a pound shot Muhammad Ali. Larry Donald was from, was he from Cleveland? I want to say he was from Cleveland, Ohio. But he used to put on a Louisville, Kentucky accent. And he used to do, poems and stuff. He used to literally think he was Muhammad Ali. He even had like a bee on his shorts. Talking about float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. So, yeah, he was like a weird Ali tribute act, Larry Donald. Yeah, Batman Boxer says Larry Holmes jumping off cars with drop kicks. Yeah, that was the 80s. That was Trevor Berbick. yeah, that was Trevor Berbick. He started talking about Larry Holmes' wife. Larry Holmes drop kicked him off a car. That was crazy. That was actually crazy. Yeah, Berbick was that kind of character. He could really get under your skin. Yeah, Hasim Ratman, the Lennox Lewis Hasim Ratman brawl in the studio. That was very reminiscent of Ali and Frazier brawling in the studio in the 1970s. Very reminiscent of that. Yeah, Mitch Green. Mitch Green might have been the craziest boxer of all. I mean, he's definitely top three. Mitch Green, Ike Ibeabuchi, and Andrew Golota. That might be like the three craziest heavyweights ever. Those three. Green, Ibeabuchi, and Golota. Every single one of them was completely off their rocking chair. completely off their rocking chair. Andrew Golota got in trouble in Poland, right? He was a decent amateur, he was in the Olympics, but he never thought about boxing pro. He was doing whatever work he was doing in Poland, got in trouble with the law because of a bar fight where he bashed up some guys, and then he fled Poland because there was a warrant out for him. So he fled Poland. He went to the United States, to Chicago, because Chicago's, back then anyway, I don't know if it's still the same now, but he used to have a very big Polish community. So he went out there to work as a truck driver, right? He really didn't think about boxing because coming from the old Eastern Bloc, a lot of them didn't understand how much money you could make yet. You know, they hadn't been exposed to a lot of stuff regarding professional boxing. And their mindset wasn't necessarily as fixated on doing boxing as a professional career as Western fighters. So he went over to the United States, working as a truck driver, fled Poland because he didn't want to get locked up. Got into boxing, as a pro because the truck driving or whatever wasn't making enough money. Met the Duvers, yada, yada, yada. The first time I saw Golota was on the undercard of Lennox Lewis versus Phil Jackson. That was the fight that Lewis had after he beat Frank Bruno, defending his WBC title. That was in the Atlantic City Convention Center in New Jersey, when Lewis fought Phil Jackson. Golota fought on the undercard. You guys will look this up. Golota fought on the undercard against the guy who looked like Elvis Presley with a handlebar mustache. If you can imagine an Elvis Presley look, got some of the rednecks that they used to find for fighters back in the 90s were crazy. Some of these redneck journeymen and stuff like that, or guys that picked out of the crowd. This guy, I don't know, he was some kind of redneck hick, right? I remember thinking, he looks like some kind of country and western guy, or a cross between Elvis Presley and a biker. Just a bizarre looking individual. And Golota fought him on the Lewis Jackson undercard, bashed him up his hapless redneck up in a couple rounds. And I remember watching that fight thinking, wow, this Golota looks useful. He looks very useful. The next fight I saw him in, I can't remember if it was a recording and the fight had happened previous to him fighting the redneck, whether it was a fight that happened after. I think it might have happened after. Because, used to watch a lot of fights on VHS back then. And Golota fought a Samoan guy called Samson Puha. Yeah, Samson Puha, who was a very good puncher. Very good puncher. And Golota had this tear up with Samson Puha where he got badly hurt in the fight. Puha hit him with I can't remember if it was a left hook or a right hand, but he had Golota in all sorts of trouble. And Golota, in response to being hurt, got in close to Puha and bit him on the neck. Hard. Like some kind of vampire. Bit him on the neck, And Puha was screaming, this guy's sinking his teeth into my neck. And at that stage, I was like, okay, Golota's one of those guys. Because it wasn't unheard of at all. I mean, the last time I remember a bite in boxing was Cash Ali when he bit David Price, right? In the 90s, there was quite a few fights where people were biting each other. Obviously, there's the famous Mike Tyson Holyfield, but Michael Bent, I think, bit Herbie Hyde at some point during their fight. And there were many other bites in the 90s. It was a more common thing to see back then. It was a wild decade. In general, but specifically in boxing, it was a wild decade. And there was a lot of biting going on in fights. And as I say, Andrew Golota bit Samson Puha on the shoulder to try and save himself from being knocked out. And he did manage to stop Puha a round or so later, or several rounds later, I forget which. But that was the first sign that Golota was maybe not all there, And then, of course, he had the Riddick Bowe fights where he got himself disqualified twice, inexplicably, when he was winning comfortably. And the man just kept throwing combinations, not 1 or 2 shots, literal 4 or 5 punch combinations, not on the belt, on the cup. I mean, it was incredible. I've never seen anything. The closest thing I've seen to it since would be Zan Kosobutsky when he fought Efe Ajagba. His infractions weren't as egregious as Golota, don't get it twisted. Golota was far worse. But the closest thing I've seen to it since would have been Kosobutsky against Ajagba. But yeah, Golota, totally off his rocking chair. Who gets themselves disqualified against the same guy in back-to-back fights and he was winning both fights? Who the hell does that? Golota was completely nuts. Right? So he did that, and that the first fight, when Golota got disqualified, that sparked a massive riot. Huge riot between Riddick Bowe's fans and Golota's fans at Madison Square Garden. And I want to say that riot, because it was so vicious, caused Madison Square Garden not to do boxing for a long time after that because of that riot. People were getting laid out like WWE style. People were picking up steel chairs and cracking each other over the head and stuff like that. Yeah, it was a crazy riot. Lou Duva, I think, had a heart attack. He certainly passed out and had to be stretchered out. Andrew Golota at the end of the first fight was attacked by one of Bowe's entourage with a walkie-talkie in the ring. Like literally, as soon as the fight was stopped, this big guy in a white t-shirt runs over with a walkie-talkie in his hand and he starts smashing it over Andrew Golota's head. It was wild in the 90s. Yeah, they used to have these big scrums in the ring after the fight was done. You'd have like 50, 60 people in the ring. It was crazy. Same in the 80s and the 70s. That was all going on. Now, it doesn't happen anymore. But those times, the ring would just get swamped after the fight. And on that occasion, it got very, very ugly indeed. But yeah, Golota, after the Bowe fights, fought Lennox Lewis, got chinned and around. And he made a bunch of excuses after the Lewis fight. He said, Lewis ain't that good and that wasn't the real me in there and all this kind of stuff. And then he fought, I forget the chronology of all this now, but he fought the likes of Michael Grant. He lost that fight. He fought, who else did he fight? Did he fight Tim Witherspoon? Did he fight Witherspoon or Mercer? He fought quite a few people back then, after the Lewis fight, and then he eventually fought Mike Tyson. And that was when Mike Tyson was coming back from being banned because of the bite against Holyfield. And, it was billed as the fight between the two craziest guys in boxing. And it was Andrew Golota who cracked. He got dropped at the end of the first round. He was catching more leather in the second round. Then he decided to quit. And his team, his corner, were arguing with him and fighting with him and trying to get him to go out for the next round. And Golota was like, no, I quit. But anyway, Golota was eventually deported from the US because when his boxing career started going down the drain, he started getting in trouble outside the ring again. And the thing that he was deported for, I think, was when he was caught with a bunch of unregistered firearms and he was impersonating a police officer. You can imagine this crazy Polish guy. I don't know whether he had a badge or what, but he was impersonating a police officer and he had a bunch of unregistered firearms. God knows what he was about to do. But they caught him for that. I can't remember if he was deported right away or whether they imprisoned him first, and then I'm not exactly how sure it went, if he did any time in America, but I remember there was that incident and then he got deported. But yeah, he was crazy as a box of frogs, that guy. Crazy. Yeah, the Fan Man incident, the 286 project, the Fan Man incident was another surreal moment in 90s boxing. The rematch between Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield. You know, I just did the Tommy Hearns video on my Patreon page where I analyze fight footage from some of his fights, his most memorable knockdowns and knockouts of his career. And one of them was against a guy called Andrew Maynard. That fight was actually on the undercard of Holyfield Bowe 2. That was one of the undercard fights. And yeah, that was the Fan Man fight. Midway through, my man comes in, paraglides into the ring. What a weird and surreal moment. It was wild back then. That guy got the crap beaten out of him, for one, you know, when because he made it into the ring, his feet got into the ring, which the television cameras didn't pick up, but the photographers at ringside did pick it up. So you can see images where his feet are actually in the ring. And it was apparently for a bet. You know, Vegas was crazy back then. And that was at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. They don't do fights there anymore. I don't know why. It was a nice outdoor arena. It was actually, I think it was the car lot. The car lot they had where they used to set up the seats and everything. But when he fell out of the ring, he was immediately bludgeoned unconscious by, I think, members of Bowe's entourage again. Bowe's entourage from BK, Brooklyn, they did not mess around at all. He had some rough guys around him, Riddick Bowe. Even though Riddick Bowe wasn't a street guy himself, you know, he had some of that Brownsville mean streak in him. Because, like, he was never in the streets or anything like that. Bowe was always like a bit of a mommy's boy. And he kind of accused Lennox Lewis of being a mommy's boy, but Riddick Bowe was a mommy's boy himself. Never had any scrapes or issues with the law at all growing up in Brownsville. Not until his boxing career. That's when he started having issues with the law because he split up with his wife and he wanted custody of the kids and he tried to take his kids by force and then he got locked up for that and blah, blah, blah. There was also that weird incident where Riddick Bowe joined I think it was the Marines. Yeah. He stopped his boxing career and he said, I always wanted to be in the military, and he joined the Marines, and I don't think he even got through 2 weeks of boot camp. couldn't get through 2 weeks of boot camp. He was still in his 20s at the time. And Bowe was pretty crazy himself. You know, he was pretty crazy. Not the most crazy guy, but he was pretty crazy. I remember when he fought the Cuban Jorge Luis Gonzalez. He was crazy too, Gonzalez. Gonzalez was like a massive bully. He used to go around, you know, with his Latino tough guy routine. Bitch slapping people and stuff like that, you know. Always with the cigar in his mouth. You'd see Gonzalez with a big cigar in his mouth, strutting around. He's a big tall guy, like 6'7", you know. Shirt open with a chest hair out. Thinking he was Tony Montana. But a 6'7" version, right? That's what he was like. He was a proper like bully, super alpha type of character. Jorge Luis Gonzalez. And he was really somebody that intimidated Riddick Bowe. Even though Riddick Bowe got in there and he smashed him to bits in their fight, outside the ring, he was kind of buoying Riddick Bowe off. Riddick Bowe was trying to avoid him in the run-up to their fight, like around, in and around the hotel. Gonzalez would always try and go to Bowe's workouts and wherever Bowe was or his hotel room and knock on the door. That's the kind of character he was, like a bully type of character. So, yeah, Bowe didn't really want it with him in any kind of street situation. So Bowe wasn't the craziest guy, but he was pretty crazy still. The zombie says Gonzalez had that hair. Yeah, Gonzalez had a crazy haircut. I don't know what that haircut was all about. I don't know what that haircut was. In fact, I want to say Gonzalez also fought on the undercard of Holyfield Bowe 2. I think he did. I think it was against Ronaldo Snipes, the guy who fought Larry Holmes years earlier and dropped Holmes. I want to say it was Ronaldo Snipes. who Gonzalez fought on the Holyfield Bowl 2 undercard at Caesar's Palace. And he beat the living daylights out of Snipes, bust him up horribly, and he was taunting him while he was beating him. Snipes' eyes were all puffed up and his face was a mess. And Gonzalez was like sneering at him. He was like the ultimate Latino bad guy. You know, he was almost like Ricardo Mayorga, but in the heavyweight division. He was that type of character. Black Dynamite says, Ronaldo used to have the reverse of Gonzalez hair. Yeah, he did. God knows what Ronaldo was doing with that haircut. There's certain countries where weird haircuts are a thing. In Argentina, a lot of the boxers from Argentina always have a rat tail. You guys notice that? They always have that weird rat tail thing going on. Is it a legacy from their Italian ancestry? Because a lot of Argentinians have Italian ancestry. And I noticed that a lot of the Italian boxers in the 90s, they used to have them rat tails as well. So it's just a weird thing. Afro Gem says, Hatman, what about the original? Who changed the decision? What is that? What is that in reference to? Simon Brandy says, Hatman. Oh yeah, talking about the Fury stuff. Yeah, backlash from the Fury stuff online, obviously. The Grand 112 says, Henry Cooper wasn't a street guy apparently, but he was good friends with the Cray twins. Yeah, but the Cray twins ran large parts of East London, Bethnal Green, right, where they were from. Henry Cooper, was he from Bethnal Green as well? Was he from South London? I want to say he was from South London, isn't he? Henry Cooper. But anyway, the Cray twins had their fingers in many pies. So yeah, sportsmen, singers, and all sorts of other people who were not street guys or criminals, they knew the Crays. Similar with like the Kinahans, right? Plenty of boxers who are not criminals knew the Kinahans and were involved with them. Yeah. Because they had obviously MTK. Declan says, Hatman, what do you think of Roberto Camarel? Never went pro, seems to have let himself go. Reminisces about his amateur glory days on Instagram. Yeah, kind of strange with Camarel because he had a lot of talent, obviously. He was the top super heavyweight for so many years. And there was talk about him going pro at one stage, but it never materialized. I don't know why. I really don't understand why he didn't go pro. Strange. I know that his day job during most of his amateur career was as a policeman. So I'm not sure if that had something to do with it. Did he arrest the wrong guys? And therefore didn't want to risk, I don't know, fighting in Italy because they do some crazy stuff in Italy. You know, the mafia out there, they do some crazy stuff. Blowing people up with bombs. They like using bombs out there. Oh, Afro Jam. Yeah, I know the fight you're talking about. You're talking about Amir Khan versus Lamont Peterson. That's the fight where the quote-unquote Hatman slipped somebody a piece of paper. Yeah, the fight that Amir Khan lost. Yeah. Yeah, the Hatman. And also, by the way, I found this out long after I started using the name Hatman. But there's also some type of like ghost or apparition or demon spirit or something called the Hatman. You guys ever heard this or looked this up on YouTube? Just type in the Hatman on YouTube and you'll see all these videos of these people who say they've seen this tall, spooky apparition that they call the Hatman. You know, like Slender Man was one of them. Some people refer to it as, I don't know, creepypasta or whatever. The Slender Man. And then there was that female one with a weird face. What was it called? Moo Mao or something? I forget the name of the female one. But along those lines, there's one called the Hatman. Some type of ghost or ghoul that haunts people. Yeah. Black Dynamite says, I swear there's a shop in Birmingham called the Hatman. Yes, there is. I went there many times when I was dating a girl in Birmingham. It's right by New Street on the ramp. Yeah, you know the ramp? If I'm not sure if it's still there, but back then there was a ramp from New Street Station coming out the shopping center or whatever. And Hatman was right there on the ramp. I think it got smashed up in the riots in 2011. I'm not sure if his business survived that. But yeah, I remember Hatman in Birmingham. Shout out to William Ballard. Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Shout out to William Ballard. Dr. Wu says, Hatman is a former bouncer. Did you know much about James Oyabola or the James Oyabola situation? Yes. I remember the night when James Oyabola got killed. I was listening to the radio and I was actually working that night in Kilburn, which is in northwest London. James Oyabola, I think, was shot in Fulham, but he'd finished the shift working in Paddington, or somewhere near Paddington, which is where he was from. He's originally from Nigeria, but he based himself in Paddington. And he'd finished work or whatever, then he went to his friend's bar, which I think was in Fulham. And there were some idiots in there. This was shortly after the smoking ban came into force. And James Oyabola was, at his friend's bar, and there was some guys in there who didn't want to observe the smoking ban. So they asked him to go over and have a word with the guys, tell them to put out their cigarettes. And one of them took offense to it. So later, not right there and then, but later on when they were on their way out of the venue, one of them pulled out a firearm and shot James Oyabola. Killed him. So yeah, I remember the night it happened because I remember it, hearing about it on the radio. That he'd been shot. TM says, do you know about Atkins and Dailies from Brixton? I know about all the old characters from Brixton. Rat Security, all that. All the old school heads. Crazy individuals. Rat is still around. Last I checked, anyway. Peter Bailey. He was crazy as a box of frogs. Yes, big up. I-157. All right, peeps, I'm going to turn this one in. Shout out to everybody for joining me on this live. I'll catch you on the next one. It's going to be a lot more regular, particularly on this channel with the lives. Need to get this channel monetized. Right now, I've only got one channel monetized, so this one needs to get monetized. Nearly there with the criteria. Just need to upload more regularly, do more regular live streams, and so on. So shout out to all you guys for being here with me and participating. I'll catch you in the next one. I'm out.